I never thought taking my boss home that night would change everything. But when she looked at me across my kitchen table the next morning and asked that question, I felt my entire world collapse around me. If you're new here, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more incredible true stories that will leave you speechless. Your support helps us share these life-changing moments with millions. Marcus Jenkins had perfected the art of invisibility at Horizon Marketing. For 3 years, he'd been the reliable account manager who never complained about overtime, never called in sick, and never mentioned the photo of his daughter Lily that sat on his desk. His colleagues knew he was a single dad, but few understood what that really meant: the constant juggling act, the sleepless nights, the crushing weight of being everything to someone who had already lost so much. When his wife Sarah died from cancer 2 years ago, Marcus had promised her he would give Lily the best life possible. That meant stability, which translated to keeping his head down at work and saving every penny. His boss, Victoria Reeves, was a tornado in stilettos, brilliant, demanding, and completely oblivious to personal boundaries. The entire office both feared and admired her. That Friday night, the company was celebrating landing the Peterson account, a client they'd been chasing for months. Victoria had insisted everyone attend the celebration at Velvet, the upscale lounge downtown. I can't stay late, Marcus had told her that afternoon. My babysitter can only stay until 10. Victoria had given him that look, the one that said his personal problems were exactly that, personal. This is mandatory, Marcus. The team needs to see unity in leadership. So he'd called Mrs. Patel next door, who agreed to stay with Lily until he got home. He'd promised to be back by 10:30 at the latest. The celebration was in full swing when Marcus arrived. Victoria was already 3 martinis in, holding court at the center of the room, her laughter a little too loud, her gestures a little too expansive. Marcus nursed a single beer in the corner, checking his watch every 15 minutes. By 9:30, Victoria was visibly drunk. By 10, she was slurring her words. When Marcus announced he needed to leave, he found her arguing with the bartender who had cut her off. "I'll call you a cab, Ms. Reeves," the bartender was saying. "I don't need a damn cab," she snapped, swaying slightly. "I'm perfectly capable of driving myself." Marcus glanced at his watch, 10:15. Mrs. Patel would be expecting him soon. But he couldn't leave Victoria like this. "I can drive you home," he offered, already regretting the words as they left his mouth. Victoria turned to him, her eyes struggling to focus. "My knight in shining armor," she said with a laugh that turned into a hiccup. Getting her to his car was a challenge. Getting her address was impossible. She kept changing it mid-sentence, then forgetting what she was saying altogether. After 15 minutes of circular conversation, Marcus made a decision he would later replay in his mind 1,000 times. "I live 10 minutes away. You can sleep on my couch and I'll drive you home in the morning." The drive was tense, with Victoria alternating between emotional declarations about how underappreciated she was and moments of uncomfortable silence. When they arrived at his modest apartment complex, Marcus helped her up the stairs, praying that Lily was already asleep. Mrs. Patel opened the door before he could get his key in the lock. Her eyes widened at the sight of Victoria leaning heavily against him. "I'm so sorry," Marcus whispered. "Emergency situation." Mrs. Patel nodded understandingly. "Lily's been asleep for an hour. She finished her homework and we read 2 chapters of her book." After paying Mrs. Patel and seeing her out, Marcus settled Victoria on the couch with a blanket and a glass of water. She was already half asleep, mumbling something about quarterly projections. "Good night, Ms. Reeves," he said quietly. "Victoria," she corrected, her eyes already closed. "Nobody calls me Ms. Reeves except people I'm about to fire." Marcus checked on Lily, who was sleeping peacefully, her stuffed elephant clutched tightly against her chest. The sight of her calmed his racing heart. Everything he did for her. Morning came too quickly. Marcus woke to the sound of movement in his kitchen. For a moment, he was disoriented, then the events of the previous night came rushing back. He threw on a t-shirt and sweatpants and hurried out of his bedroom. Victoria was sitting at his small kitchen table, looking surprisingly put together despite having slept in her clothes. Her makeup was smudged, but her posture was perfect. She was staring at a drawing on the refrigerator, Lily's family portrait from school. 3 stick figures, Lily, Marcus, and a woman with wings and a halo. "Good morning," Marcus said cautiously. Victoria looked up, her expression unreadable. "You have coffee?" He nodded and moved to the coffee maker, grateful for something to do with his hands. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the gurgling of the machine. "Your daughter?" Victoria finally asked, nodding toward a school photo of Lily that was magnetized to the fridge. "Yes. Lily. She's 8. Victoria nodded slowly, her eyes moving around the small kitchen, taking in the chipped countertops, the second-hand appliances, the carefully organized calendar on the wall with Lily's dance recital, circled in red. Marcus placed a mug of coffee in front of her and sat down across the table. "I can drive you home whenever you're ready." Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug but didn't drink. She was looking at him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "How long have you been a single parent?" she asked abruptly. 2 years, Marcus replied, surprised by the personal question. "My wife passed away from ovarian cancer." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "I had no idea. I don't talk about it at work." "Why not?" Marcus shrugged. "It's not professional. And I don't want people's pity." Victoria took a sip of her coffee, grimacing slightly at the bitterness. "Is that why you never ask for time off? Never complain about the late meetings? Never mention when you need to leave for your daughter's events?" Before Marcus could answer, a small voice came from the hallway. "Daddy?" Lily stood there in her unicorn pajamas, her dark curls a wild mess around her face. She looked curiously at Victoria. "Good morning, sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice automatically softening. "This is Ms. Reeves. She works with Daddy." Lily approached cautiously. "Are you Daddy's boss? The one he says works too hard?" Marcus felt his face flush. "Lily." But Victoria laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "Yes, I am. And your dad is right. I do work too hard." Lily nodded seriously. "My daddy works too hard too. But he says it's because he loves me and wants to give me a good life." Victoria's smile faded. She looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't interpret. "Is that true?" "Of course," Marcus said, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "Lily, why don't you go get dressed while I make breakfast?" After Lily disappeared down the hallway, Victoria set down her coffee mug with deliberate care. "Marcus," she said, her voice different than he'd ever heard it at work, softer, more human. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what?" "That every time I schedule a 6 p.m. meeting, you're scrambling for childcare. That when I demand weekend work, you're missing your daughter's life." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "It's my job. I need this job." Victoria leaned forward, her eyes suddenly intense. "Do you know why I pushed so hard for the Peterson account?" The abrupt change of subject threw him. "Because it's a major client?" "Because Peterson specifically mentioned your work in their decision to sign with us. They said your attention to detail and creative approach to their brand strategy was what convinced them." Marcus stared at her, processing this information. "You're the best account manager I have," Victoria continued. "And I've been working you to death without even realizing what you're sacrificing." Then she asked the question that would change everything. "What would you say if I told you I'm creating a new position, flexible hours, higher pay, and the ability to work from home 3 days a week, and I want you to be the first to fill it?" Marcus felt the room tilt slightly. I don't understand." Last night and this morning have been illuminating, Victoria said. I've been so focused on results that I've forgotten the people behind them. Seeing you here, with your daughter. I realize we've been doing this all wrong. Ms. Reeves, Victoria, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want special treatment because you feel sorry for me. Victoria's eyes flashed. This isn't pity, Marcus. This is business. Happy employees are productive employees. And frankly, if I don't make changes, I'm going to lose talented people like you to companies that understand work-life balance isn't just a buzzword. Before Marcus could respond, Lily came bounding back into the kitchen, now dressed in jeans and a bright yellow t-shirt. Can we have pancakes, Daddy? With chocolate chips? The normalcy of the request grounded him. Of course, sweetheart. As he moved around the kitchen gathering ingredients, he was acutely aware of Victoria watching him, seeing him not as just an employee, but as a father, a widower, a man doing his best with what life had given him. Would you like to stay for pancakes? He asked Victoria, surprising himself with the invitation. She hesitated, then smiled, a real smile, not the sharp, professional one he was used to seeing at the office. I'd like that very much. Over breakfast, Victoria asked Lily questions about school, her friends, her hobbies. She listened with genuine interest as Lily chattered about her dance class and how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. When it was time for Victoria to leave, she paused at the door. I meant what I said about the position, Marcus. We'll talk details on Monday. But I want you to know, this isn't just about you. You've made me realize I need to reevaluate how we're structuring work for all our employees. After she left, Marcus sat on the couch, trying to process everything that had happened. The boss he'd feared for years had seen him, really seen him, and instead of finding him lacking, she had recognized his value, both as an employee and as a person. The following Monday, Victoria announced a company-wide initiative to improve work-life balance. Marcus became the first, family-flexible senior account manager, a position that allowed him to be both the professional he wanted to be and the father Lily needed. 6 months later, employee satisfaction scores were at an all-time high. Client retention had improved. And Marcus had attended every one of Lily's dance recitals. One evening, as he was leaving the office at a reasonable hour, Victoria stopped by his desk. I never thanked you, she said quietly. For what? Taking you home that night? Anyone would have done the same. She shook her head. Not for that. For showing me what I was missing. I was so focused on success that I forgot what it was for. Marcus smiled. Sometimes it takes seeing someone else's life to understand your own. As he drove home to Lily that evening, Marcus reflected on how one night, one question asked across his kitchen table, had transformed not just his life, but the culture of an entire company. Sometimes, he thought, the most profound changes begin with simply being seen for who you really are. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that reminds us of our shared humanity. Sometimes the most unexpected moments become the turning points that reshape our entire lives. Share your thoughts in the comments below.